Susanoo. So Itachi has a ton of jutsu. Like seriously, dude's stacked. He's a master of ninjutsu, taijutsu, and especially genjutsu. But if we're talking about his single strongest technique, it's gotta be Susanoo. In fact, you could argue Susanoo is the strongest technique for any Uchiha. Itachi's Susanoo is literally the perfect definition of absolute defense meets ultimate offense in the Naruto world. It combines the insane power of the Mangekyo Sharingan with two divine artifacts that are straight out of myth. First, you've got the Totsuka Sword. This thing completely redefines what a sealing jutsu even is. Normally, sealing requires long prep time and complicated hand signs. Not here. The Totsuka Sword is an ethereal blade that turns every slash into an instant death sentence. Mechanically, it traps the victim inside the world of drunken dreams, a separate dimension where they're stuck forever in a genjutsu-like state. No resistance works, not even elite chakra control. One stab and you're done. That's an absolute one-hit kill. Then comes the Yata Mirror, which completes Itachi's defense system. This shield isn't just tough, it's adaptive. It uses on-demand nature transformation to perfectly counter any attack. Opponent uses fire release, the mirror instantly switches to water nature. Yeah, something like that. This is exactly why Black Zetsu said that with both artifacts combined, Itachi was essentially invincible. From a power scaling perspective, Itachi's Susanoo set a brand new standard for what it means to be a balanced fighter. Other Susanoo users have their specialties. Madara's is raw destructive force, Sasuke's leans on speed and versatility, but Itachi's Susanoo hits the perfect equilibrium between offense and defense, and he's not done there. Itachi's Susanoo also has the Yasaka Magatama, which lets him unleash long-range bombardments with homing properties. That means no enemy can just keep their distance and feel safe. Strategically, this is busted. Full-powered Susanoo Itachi could absolutely solo the majority of Akatsuki members in a straight-up fair fight. That's how insane this kit really is.
For a second, 1 like equals 1 chakra orb for Hagoromo. 1 subscribe opens another timeline where Madara finally wins the war. So, what timeline are you choosing? If this video leveled up your ninja knowledge, don't forget to smash that like button, hit subscribe, and ring the bell like it's a summoning jutsu. We've got more god-tier breakdowns coming. Sharingan, Jugan, even Shibai Otsutsuki's divine powers. You don't want to miss that. And hey, comment your favorite Rinnegan user below. Let's see whose fanbase is strongest in the comments.
C0. Alright, let's talk about Deidara's ultimate nuke, C0. This is literally the only jutsu in the whole series where the user turns their entire body into a massive weapon of destruction. It's completely insane. Here's how it works. C0 takes chakra and compresses it to an absolutely extreme level through that creepy mouth on Deidara's chest, which is connected straight to his heart. That compression builds up into an energy sphere that holds way more chakra density than any normal human body should ever contain. Once it hits the saturation point, boom! All that energy explodes at once, covering a radius of 10 kilometers. That's an absolutely apocalyptic explosion. From a strategy standpoint, C0 is a total game changer. No normal defense technique is stopping this thing. The destructive force is so overwhelming that Deidara becomes a straight-up strategic piece on the battlefield. Like, he can flip the outcome of an entire war just by existing. Enemies literally have to think twice before even trying to kill him, because if he pops C0, everybody's going down. Now, when Sasuke survived C0, it didn't prove the jutsu was weak. It proved the exact opposite. How absurdly broken this move actually is. To get out alive, Sasuke needed 3 insanely rare things to line up perfectly. His 3 Tomoe Sharingan to see the chakra flow and predict the detonation timing, the ability to instantly summon Manda, slap him under genjutsu, and use him as a shield. And most importantly, a legit space-time escape technique to get out of the blast zone's epicenter. That's way too many factors stacked in his favor. Sasuke was totally lucky to have every piece of the puzzle fall into place. This is why a lot of people say his survival was straight-up plot armor. Because normally, C0 doesn't care how skilled, fast, or experienced you are. It wipes all of that off the board. You're still facing an explosion with the raw destructive power of a tailed beast bomb. That's exactly why C0 is the natural counter to ninja who rely on pure speed or close-range combat skills. Unless you've got Hashirama's Hobi technique, that insane 360-degree defensive wall that tanked a tailed beast bomb without a scratch. Or something busted like Flying Raijin or another space-time hack. Or maybe you're chilling inside a Susanoo with the Yata mirror up front. There's literally no way you're escaping a 10-kilometer blast radius. At the end of the day, C0 is Deidara's personalized version of mutually assured destruction. He literally turned himself into a living deterrent. Every enemy had to ask themselves, is killing this guy even worth dying with him? That's the terrifying philosophy behind C0, and it's absolutely badass. Water Prison Shark Dance. Kisame's Water Prison Shark Dance is hands down one of the scariest space control jutsu we ever saw in Naruto. This move gave him a completely different fighting style, turning every battle into a survival match inside an environment where he alone dominates. Here's the core of it. Kisame first uses Great Exploding Water Colliding Wave to flood the battlefield and create a literal mini-ocean. Then, he shapes that water into a massive prison dome, and Kisame himself becomes the center of the entire system. Wherever he moves, the water dome follows him, meaning the opponent is always stuck right in the middle of his trap. There's absolutely no escape, because the prison itself keeps chasing you. But the technique gets ridiculously stronger when Kisame fuses with Samehada. This combination gives him a flat-out biological advantage. He moves underwater like a real shark. And if you've ever seen shark documentaries, you know how terrifyingly good they are at picking up blood scents and water vibrations. Kisame, in this form, gets that same insane sensory boost. No matter where his enemy swims, no matter how sneaky they try to be, Kisame knows exactly where they are. And this isn't just ninjutsu anymore, it's a brutal survival game of oxygen and biology. Honestly, if Kisame ever trapped me in this jutsu, he wouldn't even need to fight. I can't swim, I'd just drown. This jutsu turns Kisame into the perfect underwater predator. His opponent is forced to keep moving non-stop, but every single move burns more oxygen while Kisame tracks them effortlessly. The harder they try to escape, the faster they run out of air, creating a hopeless death loop that always ends with drowning. The only real weakness of Water Prison Shark Dance is when he's up against multiple opponents at once. If two enemies split and move in opposite directions, Kisame can't maintain absolute control the way he can in a pure one-on-one fight. But let's be real. In almost every combat scenario, this jutsu still gives him an absolutely overwhelming terrain advantage, turning any battlefield into his personal hunting ground. Death-controlling possessed blood. Alright, so Hiden's signature move, death-controlling possessed blood, is honestly a straight-up milestone in the history of jutsu. Why? Because it's the only technique that literally turns killing into a full-on religious ritual with absolute power. Unlike other jutsu that rely on chakra control or some Kekkei Genkai bloodline ability, this curse technique pulls its power from faith in Jashin, creating a biological link between Hiden and his victim that is absolutely unbreakable. Now, the mechanics here are crazy detailed. Hiden first has to draw the Jashin circle using his own blood. That circle basically becomes a mini-domain where the normal rules of life and death get completely flipped on their head. Once Hiden gets even a drop of his enemy's blood into his system, the transformation happens instantly. His skin turns pitch black with those white bone-like markings, showing that the curse has begun. And this is a literal biological connection happening at the cellular level between Hiden and his target. The part that makes this technique absolutely terrifying is how unavoidable it is once the link is formed. Inside the domain, every single injury Hiden inflicts on himself transfers perfectly onto his opponent. And this isn't some genjutsu illusion you can snap out of with chakra control or a normal ninjutsu you can block. No, this is like Jashin straight up rewriting the laws of physics inside his holy space. Then you stack immortality on top of that? Hiden basically becomes a living paradox in combat. While his victim suffers every cut, every stab, and can even die from it, Hiden can brutally torture himself without any fear of consequences. The enemy not only takes the damage, but is forced to watch Hiden mutilate himself, which is psychologically brutal on a whole different level. The Asuma fight is the clearest example of this jutsu's overwhelming power. Asuma was an experienced jonin with tons of skill, but he was totally helpless against the curse technique. Part of it was bad luck too. His team had zero intel on Hiden's abilities before the fight, which made it impossible to plan around it. So it's not like this jutsu is completely unbreakable. It's just insanely hard to counter unless you already know what's going on. And you know what's even crazier? Outside of some mid-level taijutsu, this was basically the only move Hidan ever showed in the entire series, all the way until his death, which basically means by default, this curse was his strongest jutsu. And considering how insanely busted it is, that honestly makes perfect sense. Earth Grudge Fear. Alright, so Kakuzu's signature move, Earth Grudge Fear, it's a full-on forbidden technique built like a survival system. Instead of just giving him one powerful attack, this thing gives him an entire multi-layered backup structure with 3 core pillars: regeneration, resource collection, and power diversification. Sounds complicated, right? Let's break it down. From a battlefield survival perspective, Earth Grudge Fear works as an absolutely insane biological backup system. Those black threads don't just stitch his body together, they create a self-healing network that can instantly reconnect any damaged or destroyed body parts. What that means in combat is wild. Kakuzu can straight up tank hits that would kill literally anyone else, and then immediately flip the situation into a counterattack. But it doesn't stop there. This forbidden jutsu lets Kakuzu split and control different parts of his body independently. He isn't locked into the normal limitations of the human form. Instead, he can launch multi-directional assaults from angles no opponent could ever predict. He can even send his limbs underground to strike from below, turning any terrain into a tactical advantage. The real broken part of Earth Grudge Fear, though, is the heart collection system. It's a long-term strategy to keep stacking power. Every single heart he rips out and takes gives him a brand new chakra nature, adding to his arsenal. With 4 extra hearts stored at once, Kakuzu becomes one of the ridiculously rare shinobi who can use all 5 basic chakra natures. That's basically a one-man army right there. So, to actually kill Kakuzu, his enemy has to destroy all 5 of his hearts almost simultaneously, which is insanely hard to pull off in a real fight. That's why Earth Grudge Fear makes him one of the most absurdly durable and strategically dangerous shinobi in the entire series. Diva Path. Alright, this right here is the strongest path of pain. No debate, Diva Path is literally the Rinnegan's crown jewel. To really get why this ability is so terrifying, we gotta break it down layer by layer. Shinra Tensei and Bansho Tenin work together like a perfect gravitational system, turning Nagato into something like a living black hole. He's the center of his own force field, bending reality however he wants. When Pain went up against Kakashi, that moment where he casually used Shinra Tensei to swat away Raikiri instantly proved that normal ninjutsu was absolutely useless against him. He doesn't even need to move, he just extends his hand, and physics itself bends to his will. The most iconic scene? Easily when Pain floated in the air like some divine being, Shinra Tensei, and erased Konoha off the map. From the perspective of the villagers looking up, Pain literally looked like the angel of death hovering over their world. The shockwaves spread in perfect circles, buildings collapsed in flawless sequence, and within seconds, the entire hidden leaf that we'd followed for hundreds of episodes just stopped existing. And then you've got Chibaku Tensei, which takes things from god tier to cosmic. Watching Pain create a miniature moon to trap Naruto in Nine Tails form was like seeing someone casually pull off a feat you'd only expect from actual celestial bodies. The gravitational pull was so overwhelming that entire landscapes were ripped out of the earth and dragged skyward. Kamui. Alright, this one's a little different. Yeah, Obito had the Rinnegan, and yeah, his peak was when he became the Ten Tails Jinchuriki. But in this case, I'd choose his own personal power, Kamui. Kamui changes the entire paradigm of combat. His instant teleportation is absolutely superior to Minato's Flying Thunder God because Obito doesn't need a prep phase. No seals, no marks, no setup. He can just warp anywhere, anytime. That instantly makes defensive positioning and territorial control completely meaningless. But here's the truly dangerous layer, the dual phase mechanism of his right Mangekyo. Phase intangibility isn't just a defensive move, it's a perfect tactical reset button. For a full 5 minutes, Obito can literally ignore every single attack thrown at him. During that window, opponents are forced to burn through chakra and stamina, while Obito just stands there conserving his energy. And because he can selectively phase objects and weapons, he creates these devastating, unstoppable combo attacks. Now, the critical weakness lies in the transition between his intangible state and his teleportation state. That tiny split second where he has to solidify before activating Teleport Kamui, it's predictable. That's exactly how elite fighters like Minato exploited him. Add in the 5-minute limitation, and in long battles, Obito is eventually forced into more and more vulnerable windows. But let's be honest, only elite shinobi can even dream of punishing those weaknesses. Regular ninja don't stand a chance against Kamui. This is the same ability Obito used to literally massacre almost the entire Uchiha clan. And remember, the Uchiha are above-average warriors across the board. Performance of 100 puppets. This jutsu rewrote what it means to fight with sheer numbers. Sasori didn't just break the physical limits of puppeteering, he invented a totally new combat system. You know, even the best puppeteers normally can only control up to 10 puppets at once because, well, 10 fingers. Sasori obliterated that limit. He controls over 100 puppets simultaneously, using more than 100 chakra strings shooting out from his chest cavity. The real breakthrough? He eliminated the time lag between thought and action. In traditional puppet control, there's always a tiny delay between giving the command and the puppet responding. Not here, because these 100 puppets are directly connected to Sasori's core. They respond instantly to his every thought. What you get is essentially a single superorganism made up of 100 different bodies, all moving and attacking perfectly in sync. He proved the destructive power of this jutsu by basically taking down an entire nation. His strategy is pure attrition warfare. Overwhelm the enemy with sheer numbers and relentless persistence. Even if some puppets get destroyed, the rest don't become any less deadly because Sasori can instantly focus more control on the survivors. And here's the final deadly touch: poison coating. Every single puppet weapon is coated with poison. His puppet army literally has every type of weapon you can imagine. One tiny scratch is enough to send an enemy into 3 days of agonizing paralysis before they die. Now, a lot of people think his human puppet technique is his strongest. Sure, it's strong, especially if you can turn a powerful person into your puppet. But with just one puppet, the user's own body is extremely vulnerable, especially against a group of opponents. When you have 100 puppets, you're the one who controls the battlefield, takes the initiative, and attacks from all directions. Sasori himself brought out his 100 puppets after the third Kazekage puppet was destroyed to end the fight with Chiyo and Sakura. Paper Person of God. This is easily one of the most insane battlefield prep jutsu in Naruto. The genius here is preparation and camouflage. Konan prepped a ridiculous 600 billion explosive tags, perfectly disguised as natural terrain. And get this, even a Sharingan couldn't see through it. Sharingan can read chakra and detect genjutsu, yet she fooled it. That's really artistry and paper manipulation, turning her battlefield prep into a masterclass in deception. Here's how it works. The jutsu is all about making escape literally impossible. Once her target steps into the right spot, Konan triggers a split in the terrain, creating a massive chasm that removes all footholds. The enemy is then in full freefall, completely out of control and utterly helpless. Then comes the execution phase. Konan manipulates her explosive tags to stick onto the target and detonates them continuously for 10 minutes straight. Well, she actually studied Obito's Kamui. She knew he could only maintain intangibility for 5 minutes. By setting off 10 full minutes of explosions, she completely negates any chance of escape. Of course, this jutsu takes way too long to prep and is insanely costly to pull off multiple times. But that's fine, because Konan designed this as her ultimate kill move specifically for Obito. One shot, all in. Mayfly. Alright, so White Zetsu's actual fighting skills are trash. Like nobody's scared of him throwing hands. But this man's got one technique that is honestly one of the most perfect infiltration moves in Naruto. The core of Mayfly comes from the Hashirama cells inside him. And because of that, Zetsu can totally blend with the natural ecosystem. This isn't just some cheap camouflage. White Zetsu literally becomes part of the environment. Once he activates it, his body melts into the ground and the plants, turning himself into a living node inside this massive biological network that covers the whole area. And here's where it gets wild. The technique gives him an absolutely broken information advantage. White Zetsu can move ridiculously fast through the network of tree roots and underground water systems, basically creating a secret travel system that nobody can track. Nobody, and I mean nobody, not even Kage-level sensory types, can detect Zetsu once he's fused with the environment. And the final piece? Network communication. Zetsu can literally tap into the root system to send messages to other Zetsu without even moving. That means he's running a global intelligence network, able to pass info secretly and instantly across huge distances. Possession. If you thought white Zetsu was weak, black Zetsu is even worse when it comes to fighting. Dude can't scrap for real, but he's got one technique that is ridiculously busted: possession. The way possession works is all about black Zetsu's insanely malleable body. He can completely cover a target like a living suit of armor, creating a direct link between his own will and the host's body. And black Zetsu literally channels his will through the target, turning them into a flawless extension of himself. The craziest part? Full inheritance. When he possesses someone, he gets access to everything they have. Their techniques, their Kekkei Genkai, their unique powers. Imagine him taking over an Uchiha. He'd be able to use the Sharingan and all of its powers instantly. T-possession also lets him absorb and transfer chakra, basically turning him into a living chakra battery. He can redistribute energy between allies and even stabilize life force, letting his host survive insanely dangerous, near-death situations. But there is one real weakness here: willpower. As we saw with Obito, if the host has a strong enough will, they can suppress Black Zetsu's control and even flip the situation on him. And here's the wildest part: any immunities Black Zetsu has get passed on to the host. For example, his immunity to the infinite Tsukuyomi was shared with Obito. That proves possession isn't just about control, it's about creating a completely broken symbiotic relationship between parasite and host. Alright, that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.